I miss us. The us that formed on subway trains, the tiny kindnesses that never got reported in the news, the alchemy of bumping up against strangers. I once helped a man carry one of his twins down the subway stairs. I saw him holding the two girls, one in each arm, and descending the steps backwards, so slowly and painstakingly, his face grimacing. Beads of sweat stood out on his brown skin. I asked him if he was hurt. He said he thought he tore a hamstring. "May I carry your girls for you?" I asked. He paused, his eyes softened, and he thanked me with relief. He said if I could carry one of them, that would be a big help, and he offered me the twin closest to me, her eyes wide, her bright red dress and the ribbons in her hair, identical to her sister's. She immediately wrapped her arms around my neck. Time stopped. Tears sprung to my eyes. I felt the holiness of little arms trusting me for safety. The little girl smelled like clean laundry and hope. She never loosened her grip. The flow of people resumed around us while the dad grunted his way to the bottom of the staircase, repeating a string of thank yous with each step like a moving prayer. All I could think was, I was the one who was grateful.
After the 4th grade, my family moved to the suburbs, 20 minutes away from the house where I grew up, with my friend on the other side of a brick wall. My parents told me it wasn't far, but my friend said it was really far, past the science museum and the high school and the soccer fields. We went exploring in the woods behind my house, and eventually we were in someone else's backyard, where we found something we'd only ever dreamed of seeing, a full-size trampoline. We watched for a long time to see if anyone was home, but there was no movement, just the motionless black trampoline in the middle of a vast field of light green, short-cut grass. We jumped for hours, doing flips, back tucks, aerials, and jumping off the edge and rolling into the grass like we were thrown from an exploding airplane. When we got tired, we lay on our backs, watching the sky, and then we heard a voice coming from the house. We froze, watching as a woman approached. I saw she was smiling. She said, "Don't be scared, I just wanted to say hello. I'm glad someone is getting use from this old thing." I said, "I just moved here," which was the only thing I could think to say. She said, "Welcome to the neighborhood," and then we watched her walk back to the house. The next day I went back alone. I was doing backflips, trying to make myself into a smaller and smaller ball each time. Suddenly the woman said, "Hi." I froze in midair and fell off the trampoline. She said, "Why aren't you in church?" It was a Sunday morning. I said, "We don't go to church," and she said, "Me neither." I asked her, "Do you believe in hell?" She laughed and said, "No, not really." I had never talked about the afterlife with anyone other than my friend. I told her about my version where there's no time. She said, "That sounds nice," and then, "What about in hell?" A few weeks later, my mom was driving me to soccer practice, and she said, "Mrs. Augustine was telling me about your thoughts on the afterlife. She said it was interesting." I told my mom I had just been joking.
One time I was rushing through the subway crowd, the Midtown E-train masses, all of us in a hurry, annoyed, scrambling to pass each other and get to the sunlight. I felt a hand on my forearm and looked down to see an elderly woman, her face calm and quiet. She asked me if this was the right train to get to such and such. Her manner was so unhurried, her peace so pervasive that I instantly slowed. I felt my brain recalibrate and take in the spaciousness of the present moment. I said, yes, that's right. Then I remembered that my dress was partially unzipped in the back because I hadn't been able to reach the zipper myself while getting dressed. It suddenly seemed like the most natural thing in the world to ask this woman, would you do me a favor? Without knowing what it was, she said yes. I told her about my zipper and turned around so she could see. Her face broke out into a smile. She zipped me up carefully as if I were royalty, Lady Grantham, or a bride on her big day, then patted my back when she was done, as if to wish me a good day, to let me know that she sees me and cares about my good fortune. We parted ways. I walked slowly into the dazzling sun.
When I was a child, my father contaminated the drinking water of our entire town. He was raised during hard times in bleak environs and saw an opportunity for collective growth in the act of poisoning his community. I grew up with the shame of being the child of a man who didn't know what he was doing. You were once a child who could not get what you wanted. Can you feel the welling of your tantrum at not being allowed? Your brave insistence on being heard. Your whole life you've carried that angry child with you, doctored her needs to suit your own, blamed your dissatisfaction on generally how the world sucks and adults ruin everything. What would you have us worry over? If this was your earth, your humanity, what fear would you have us diving into? Can you imagine facing it? Can you imagine recovering from that fear and then being free of it? Suddenly, my body feels mutable. Alone in our homes, we feel the dissolution, the dissolving of they. My father's impulse to poison the well makes more sense now. He wanted to give us all something to talk about. A unifying sickness. Maybe then we would know what to do. We cannot hold it back because there is no it. We are them. The internet is an imperfect reflection of our continuousness. It, this, us, them, all seen through the eye who in this moment has been erased because her every footing has been erased. Everything that made you feel justified in your anger before now has been erased. And you suddenly want the government to control you, to tell you exactly how to behave and what to do to minimize your harm. You realize that authority is an illusion you've been projecting your own responsibility onto. You are a grown-up. We are one grown-up human organism. We were, until now, too huge a thing to see ourselves. We made believe that we were separate, that there must be a them and a them and a them because I feel I have no effect. We marvel at the way trees communicate and feed each other, but could not see ourselves as the giant forest, the fungus that covers the earth in language and love and laughter. We did not believe that we could be good and do good because we imagined something outside of ourselves that made us bad, that made it bad. Now we see that there is no it. We are it. This is it. This is life. Alone in your home is the perfect place to practice feeling the space and the air and the food and the water that your body needs to inhabit. To practice knowing the difference between need and desire. To practice feeling free. Many of us have been taught to be ashamed of the space we take up. We live every day with the fear that it will be wrested from our grip. But you are not anyone's enemy. You do not have enemies. Now is the time to let go of the enemy within yourself. To let go of the notion of inside or outside. Let go of them. We are continuous. You and I are touching. We are holding each other. I planted a field of clovers for you to lay down in. Lay down. Feel the sun of the real summer on your skin. See the morning of the real day. This is it. This is real life.
This is from a random Tuesday in New York City. I remember I was late for class. As usual, I had stuffed my day with more appointments than one person could complete. Instead of acknowledging that to myself, everyone else became the problem. Couldn't they move faster? Why was everyone on 8th Avenue walking so slowly, like they had nowhere to be? Some of us had a life and responsibilities, and we're 8 minutes late to class. Move. My face was tense, my jaw clenched, and I clutched the straps of my backpack tighter in case I suddenly had clearance to break out into a jog. That's when I saw this mother and her 2 children walking in the opposite direction. Why she chose to stop me when I must have looked like a ball of tension is beyond me, but she did. She was soft-spoken and apologetic. Her kids looked up at me shyly. She said they were looking for Times Square and one store in particular, and somehow she thought it was supposed to be on this corner, but it wasn't. My first thought was, "Lady, I've got somewhere to be. I can't deal with you right now." But something made me stop. Maybe it's having been raised by parents who are magnets for this sort of thing. My parents must have helping faces too, because when I was little, no matter where we were, strangers sought them out for help and direction. And my parents, despite having 5 kids underfoot, would stop whatever they were doing and provide it. By the end of the exchange, all would be fast friends, and my mom and dad would walk away smiling and holding hands and say, "Weren't they lovely?" Maybe that's what made me stop when I was already running behind. While I spoke to the woman, her daughter, who was about 4 years old, gently took my hand in hers. She told me she liked my nail polish, and she began to stroke my hand. I stopped speaking abruptly. I had never felt such soft skin in my life. It was like being brushed by rose petals or the hand of God. Time disappeared. I forgot about class or being late or the bustle of people pushing past us. I told the little girl, "You have the softest skin I have ever felt in my life." Then the little boy, who was about 6, lifted his forearm up to me and said, "What about my skin? How's my skin?" I touched his arm and said, "Wow, yours too." The mother smiled at me apologetically and told her kids to stop bothering the lady. I felt the reconfiguration of my molecules while everything inside me reordered itself. And I remembered the vastness of each moment and the infinite nature of our connection. I guess that's what I'm aware of, while the us is physically halted for the time being and I have nowhere to rush. I still feel connected. I feel all those interactions and carry all those people. And maybe that's what this time is here to show us. That web is always in place, whether we're bumping up against each other or not, whether we're asking each other for help or not. We're always feeling the one heart that we share, and we're all leading each other home.